Have you ever wondered what happens on a cruise ship when the internet goes down fleet-wide? We were on the Jubilee, February 7th and 8th, 2026, and here's my experience. First of all, people started complaining all over the place because their onboard credit that they had was inaccessible. Additionally, people who had put money directly onto their account also did not have access to that. Finally, for people, and the casino was down. The casino would work, but only with cash. So you could not charge anything to your room. You could not charge anything anywhere. And you were just out of luck unless you had cash. So that was a little bit of a struggle for a lot of people. People started complaining all over the place. There were rumors going rampant that it was an IT hack. There were rumors going rampant that we were not going to be allowed to disembark when we got to Cozumel. There were all kinds of rumors, but here's my experience. I had the situation where, as a disabled person, I use a motorized scooter after being in a 75-mile-per-hour car accident where I was jaws of lifed out, cracked my skull, my knee was destroyed, I've had hand surgery. So I used my own personal motorized scooter, which had no problem getting me onto the ship. However, shortly after setting sail yesterday, I had a complete system failure, and maybe the IT got hacked on my scooter too, who knows. But my scooter is basically a big paperweight at this time. So my scooter, absolutely useless, left me stranded down on, I think it was deck 7, and my husband was able to help me get back up to our cabin, which, because we got such a great deal, we actually took an inside cabin this time, which we don't always do. These 4 walls, even though we have extra space because I have a fully accessible handicap cabin, these 4 walls got very small after being in my cabin Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, all the way into Sunday evening. I missed the Super Bowl. I missed dinner twice. My husband did bring up some food for me, thankfully. It was just absolutely not as pleasant as this vacation was supposed to be. Now, tried to make the best out of it. Turned on the TV, watched some movies, took a couple naps, watched another movie, took another nap, kept checking with guest services. The system was still down. This meant that they were not able to access whether or not they had a handicap scooter available for me. I know you're supposed to rent them before you get on the ship. However, due to a scooter malfunction on a previous ship where I did rent a scooter many months ago, many cruises ago, I know that they have extra scooters. So I asked about being able to use one of those. I was told there are no extra scooters on the ship. I was told there's nothing that guest services can do. I was told they have to wait for the internet to come up to contact the company. Somehow, my internet was still working, so I got a hold of the company Scootaround myself. And they told me that their records show that there are scooters on the ship. Called down to guest services. Guest services said, nope, we don't have any more on the ship. We can't even rent you a wheelchair until the system comes up. So I waited and waited and waited and took another nap and watched another movie. And by the time the Super Bowl was about over, I had contacted Scootaround again. They said they in fact do show that there are scooters available for rent and that I needed to go down to guest services. Guest services in the meantime kept saying, well, if you want to, the first time I called, she was very short. We don't have them. Second time I called, absolutely not helpful. Third, fourth time I called, still not helpful. My husband had been going back and forth numerous times to check on whether the systems were up. Meanwhile, the manager who could authorize anything was not coming in until 11 a.m. And come 11 a.m., she was nowhere to be found, and they didn't know where she was. And yeah, I was out of luck. So during this time, this is when I'm contacting Scootaround, and I let them know I had rented previously. Is there anything they could do to help me? They had told me to go talk to guest services. My husband went down and talked to guest services. Guest services said they didn't have a scooter. Contacted Scootaround again. They said no, there is one on the ship. We've got several extra on the ship. Go, tell customer service or guest services that you talked to us. So I did that. Guest services was absolutely unhelpful. I did at one point just really get frustrated, and I called. That's when I started reaching out to Scootaround myself. Scootaround again told me that they had one and to tell guest services to get me a scooter. So they sent me an email. I sent my husband down with the email. Email wasn't good enough for them. They had to be able to access it with their own system, which they couldn't do because the internet was down. So round and round and round and round and round we went. I finally called and said, look, I have been in this cabin for 2 days now. How many more hundreds of dollars do I have to miss out on for my cruise before somebody can authorize something? Have us sign something, do something, get a scooter available for me. I know they have them because Scootaround, who owns the scooter, said that they are on the ship and they're in their inventory as being on the ship and not being used right now. So guest services was absolutely not helpful. The lady actually said, well, why don't you come down and we'll talk about it down here? And I lost it. I said, what part of I do not have that mobility do you not effing understand? And I did curse. She threatened to hang up on me. And I said, look, let me explain my situation again. And this time, please listen to me. I was in a 75-mile-per-hour accident that destroyed my knee. I cannot walk. I have no cartilage in my knee. I can walk, but just a very short distance. I also have congestive heart failure. I can't walk from one end of the Jubilee to the other. It's not going to happen. I said, my husband is 64 years old. It took him a lot of effort to get me up to my cabin in a dead weight scooter. My scooter was useless. My scooter still is useless. I have, in fact, I'm about ready to give up on travel scooter. I have parts on the way, but I did order another scooter, a different brand, off of Amazon to be able to use. This is not sponsored by Amazon, by the way, and I do not recommend Travel Scoot, but I will have a scooter at home for use when I get home. In the meantime, I'm up in this cabin, can't get out. The lady tells me I need to come down. I lost it, and I said, look, and I explained the situation again. She finally understood me, and oh my goodness, suddenly my husband can rent a wheelchair. So my husband goes down, gets a wheelchair, comes up, gets me, and I've, in the meantime, talked to Scootaround again. They have confirmed again that they have a scooter. I went down, email in hand, and said, look, this is what they said. And what do you know? Suddenly they found a scooter. Come on, Carnival. Do better. I do want to mention, it's not Carnival. It's their employees who were not trained properly that I am upset with. We love our Carnival cruises. We get great deals. However, everything went wrong for the first 2 days of our trip. This is what someone with disabilities deals with.